Hello, my name is Neil from Skyway Software, and in this screencast I'm going to do a walkthrough of the Spring Editor and Spring DSL tutorial that's available for My Eclipse for Spring 8.5. The only requirements for this tutorial are that you have either an evaluation version or a licensed version of My Eclipse for Spring 8.5, which is available from the myeclipseide.com website. With My Eclipse for Spring, there are various tools for accelerating Spring web application development. In addition to scaffolding and bootstrapping features, the Spring DSL and Spring editors have also proven to really increase productivity. The Spring DSL defines 11 abstractions, and each abstraction has a direct correlation to Java, Spring, and JPA artifacts. Each abstraction has its own editor, and each will generate into a distinct set of code or configuration artifacts. For this tutorial, we're going to focus on the Spring Service abstraction, but the concepts apply equally to all of the other abstractions as well. Before we actually demonstrate this, it's important to realize how the Spring DSL works. So in the specific instance of the Spring DSL service, it is responsible for managing multiple code and configuration artifacts for me. And in this diagram we see that it essentially manages, in its simplest form, it manages three artifacts for me. It manages my service implementation, which is an @service annotated Spring component. It manages my service interface, and it also manages my JUnit tests. So as I create instances of a Spring DSL service, it's going to go ahead and automatically manage, maintain, and update the respective files that it's responsible for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the project that I used in a previous tutorial for initialization, and I'm going to open up the project, and from the Spring DSL node I'm going to right click and create a model package. So right click, new model package, and I will call this org acme.services and click finish. A model package is equivalent to defining a package in Java. It's the Spring DSL equivalent to a Java package. And from here I'm going to create a new service by right clicking on the model package and selecting service and saying my service. And I'll click finish. And then I can go ahead and double click on the Spring DSL service, and it will pull up an editor, and from here I can actually configure my variables, my code generation options, whether or not I want these to be available as DWR, JAX-WS, as well as various other Spring configurations. Next I'm going to create another an operation under here, so I'll go do new operation, and I'll just call this do something and click finish. And from this editor I can define the inputs and outputs of this operation, code generation settings, as well as some other Spring configurations as well. As I click on a Spring DSL artifact, let me close these windows. As I click on a Spring DSL artifact, you'll notice that this generated window will actually show me all of the code components that are being managed by this. So if I were to actually double click on the My Service Implementation Java file, it will open it up in the Java editor. And this is the code that was generated for me. I have all of my imports. It is annotated as a Spring service, and I should also see my operation here, the do something operation. Similarly, if I want to see the service interface, I can double click on this and it will load up the service interface for me. So this is one way for me of actually working with the code that's generated. Of course, I could actually go into the generated folder and open it up just like a normal Java class as well, but this just gives me an alternate way of letting me work with the Spring DSL and have direct access to the code components that are being generated and being managed for me. And then from here, the only thing that's left for me to do is to actually go ahead and implement it, and I do that just using plain old Java and specifying exactly what it is that I want this service to do. So in this case, I will put in something like system out and if I also want to, if I want to add operations directly from the code, I can go in here and put in another method, and when I hit save, it will automatically synchronize the Spring DSL with the source code that I added to the code. So I can work from the Spring DSL, or I can work from the source code, and my Eclipse for Spring will automatically keep these things synchronized. So at a high level, that is the basics of working with the Spring DSL and the associated set of Spring editors. Thank you.